Do you guys like my Gilmore Girls mug? Good afternoon, my name is Camden and welcome back to my channel. As I'm sure you have guessed from the title of today's video, we are going to be doing a video based off of the show Gilmore Girls. I really love the show Gilmore Girls. Fall is my absolute favorite season, and I feel like the show just embodies everything I always loved about going back to school and being cozy and drinking coffee, and it just has always held a really special place in my heart ever since I watched it maybe like 10 years ago. I also feel like the Venn diagram between people who love to read and people who love Gilmore Girls is pretty much a complete circle, so I think a lot of you will enjoy watching this video as well. During this year's rewatch of the show, I paid particular attention to all of the books that Rory Gilmore is reading throughout the episodes. Whether it's shots of her physically reading or books that she's talking about with her friends and family members.
You got Dina a book? Yeah, Metamorphosis. Metamorphosis. It's Kafka. Very romantic.
I wrote all of them down, and I have chosen my TBR for this video based on that. All of these books were taken from the first season, since that's as far as I've gotten so far, and I did have to eliminate a bunch based on ones that I've already read.
So, how you liking Moby Dick?
Oh, it's really good.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's my first Melville.
Cool.
Ones that were over 700 pages, which is just not doable for this video.
What do you read?
Portable Dorothy Parker.
Ones that just did not pique my interest at all.
What book is it?
Mencken's Chrestomathy?
Oh, that one.
Or all of the books that I would not have access to based on what's available at my library and what's available on my bookshelves. And after all that, I was only left with 2 books, which are the books that we are going to be reading in today's video.
After school, you come out and you sit under that tree there and you read. Last week, it was Madame Bovary. This week, it's Moby Dick.
And that is Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert and A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. Both of these books are available through my Script app, so that is where I will be reading them or possibly listening to them, because I haven't yet decided what to do with Madame Bovary. I'm actually pretty excited to read some good classics again. It's been a while since I read a classic, and something about the style really does kind of feel reminiscent of fall to me, possibly because I would read them a lot during school. But yeah, I'm excited to see if Rory Gilmore has better taste in books than she does in men. I will check in with you guys a little bit later when I have done some more reading. See you then. Hello, I am back with a reading update for Madame Bovary. I am 40% of the way through this book and I really do not know how I feel about it yet. This book centers around Emma Bovary, who is the wife of a country doctor, and we are just following her throughout their marriage and their life as she is becoming increasingly discontent with her lot in life and her husband. Charles Bovary is quite a bit older than her and she is his second wife, and when she met him she seems to have thought that he was going to be a lot more well off than he is and make a lot more money than he actually does. And I think she also had kind of expectations of what marriage was going to be like for her and that it was going to be similar to what she reads in her romance novels, and that just has not panned out the way that she had planned as the novel progresses. Throughout the first half of this novel, we've really seen her go through a lot of different phases of trying to embrace motherhood and be a good wife and try and be a bit religious and pray a lot. These phases never really seem to last long because she's not really well suited to motherhood. She's actually kind of abusive to her daughter and she really doesn't like Charles or religion, so her efforts are never really that wholehearted. Earlier on in the book, we saw her really start to develop some feelings and fantasies about one of their neighbors. His name was Leon, I think, and he is like a student. They like to talk about books together and connect over things like that. That relationship never really went anywhere, but now she is engaged in a full-on affair with Rodolphe, who I don't really know who this guy is in this story. I don't know if I missed it. I am listening to the audiobook of this book, so I might have missed the part where they explained who he is and what he does. But she is like sneaking off to meet him, having a full-on affair with him, telling him she loves him, and this guy definitely feels like bad news. I don't think he's that invested in her at all, and I feel like he just wants one thing, if you know what I mean. So I don't think this is going to end well for Emma, or Charles, or Rodolphe, or any single person in this novel. I understand the story, and I have a good feeling I know where the story is going, but I guess what I'm not sure of in this novel is what I'm supposed to be feeling. Am I supposed to be feeling bad for Emma? Am I supposed to be feeling bad for Charles? Am I supposed to not like a single person involved in this novel? I do feel sympathy for Charles. He's so oblivious and so like unbothered by everything, and it really seems like he wants the best for Emma and truly like feels devoted to her. And everybody seems to be able to pick up on this because Rodolphe even uses the excuse that he wants to take Emma out horseback riding because he thinks she looks a little peaked and that this will help improve her health. And Charles, being loving and a doctor, is like, yes, take her out. Like, this is a great idea. Anything that will be good for her health is like a-okay with me. And Emma's like, are you sure? Like, I feel like this will like get people talking and we're gonna be the center of gossip. And Charles even says like, your health is way more important to me than what other people think. And I just think that's so sweet. And I feel like I'm supposed to understand Emma's point of view a little bit, and I just don't. I think Charles is the nicest ever. I don't understand. You have something good going on at home, Emma. What is your problem? What is so attractive about this Rodolphe guy? I don't get it. So yeah, that is my thoughts on that so far. I have not really started A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf yet. I have read maybe like the first 15 pages or so, and I'm not really looking forward to it. But we are gonna go and finish Madame Bovary first, and then I will check back in with you, and then we can really focus in all of our attention on A Room of One's Own, because I don't really think I can read like two wordy, dense feeling classics at the same time and like really be able to digest both. So I'm gonna finish Madame Bovary and then I will check back in with you, and then we will continue on with Rory's book choices. Hello, I am here to give you a final reading update for Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. I finished this book a couple of days ago and I jotted down some notes throughout the reading experience. However, these were all just like jotted down randomly and I haven't really sat down to try to put them in a cohesive order and form some well thought out thoughts for you. So if this is a little all over the place, I sincerely apologize. Overall, I felt that the second half of this book was much stronger and held my interest a lot better than the first half of this book. I think primarily the reason for this was that the first half was really just like setting the stage, getting everything in place for the second half to really kick off with all of the actions leading down to Madame Bovary's kind of tragic downfall. So things are happening a lot more quickly and a lot more rapid succession than they did in the first half. This book is quite a detailed character study of Madame Bovary, and particularly the way that her vices control her over time. She has a couple of different vices that she's struggling with throughout this novel. The first being that she has a bit of a shopping addiction. She really loves beautiful things. And her other vice is that she is a hopeless romantic who seeks one of these like sweeping great romance for the ages type of relationships, and she's willing to find those even outside of her marriage. So she ends up having a couple different affairs throughout the book. I think the author did a great job of showing the progress of these vices over time, how they're slowly gaining more and more of a hold over her until we reach this tipping point where there's no coming back from it. After which point the last like 200 pages of the novel are just watching her downfall and watching all of her actions catch up to her. My feelings towards Emma Bovary in the first half of the novel were very much like geared around like annoyance and frustration. I didn't really understand why she was acting the way she was acting, and I still don't understand at the end of the novel why she acts the way she acts. However, during the second half of the novel, my feelings were much more like sympathetic towards her. Even though I don't like her as a character, it's hard to watch her be used by the men that she's having affairs with, be lied to, be manipulated, and also hard to watch her in such a deep despair. And even though she's annoying, I'm still human and I am capable of empathy in some situations. Charles Bovary, however, is such a sweet, innocent little angel being. I cannot help but feel protective towards him and just like love him. He's so pathetic. He's so innocent to a fault. He's so oblivious, but like he's so precious at the same time. He was such a funny character just in the way that he's so oblivious. His like little head's in the clouds all the time. And he does truly have deep, fond affection for Emma and want what's best for her. And even as he discovers some truths about her, he refuses to believe that she is capable of her actions, and it was really hard to watch towards the end of the book. I feel like this book is worth reading just for Charles's sake alone. When it came down to rating this book, I did struggle to decide if I wanted to rate it a 4-star or a 3-star. I did really enjoy it. However, I ended up deciding to rate it a 3-star. I feel like this book falls victim to the same thing that a lot of serialized novels at the time fall victim to, which is just that if you're being paid by the word, which is what they were being paid in those times, you're going to add so much extra fluff to the story in order to get paid more that we ended up with like 200 extra pages that weren't really necessary to the story. I feel like this book could have been told in a much more concise way, and it would have aided in the reading experience for me at least. If you do enjoy classics and this kind of a concept sounds interesting to you, but you just don't have 600 pages worth of time to devote to reading Madame Bovary, I would recommend picking up Ethan Frome. I feel like it has very similar theme, but it was told in a much more concise way. I think that book is only about 200 pages total and one of my personal favorite classics. But anyway, those are my final thoughts on Madame Bovary. Tomorrow I'm going to start A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf in earnest. I downloaded it on my Kindle, so hopefully I can get some reading in, maybe on my break at work tomorrow. Hello, I am back to give you a final reading update for A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. I jotted down my thoughts as I read this book and some thoughts after I finished it, and I'm gonna try and say these in a very concise way. The first thing to know about this book is that it was 2 lectures that Virginia Woolf gave at 2 different women's colleges, and they were collected together and printed, and that is what became A Room of One's Own. I think that this book made a lot of interesting points, the main one being that an artist needs time and stability and a room of one's own, or like a safe, stable living environment in order to produce quality art. Another really interesting point that I took away from this book was the fact that Virginia Woolf points out just how many works of great fiction were written by anonymous, how in a lot of cases anonymous may have meant women, especially because going through the publishing process would have been difficult for women, and becoming a published author may have been dangerous or expose women to ridicule. And probably my favorite point that she made in this book was about how women's voices are so incredibly important in writing about women, because when it comes to male authors, we often see this problem of writing women only as they relate to men, as a man's lover, as a man's servant, as a man's wife, and not who that woman is as an individual, with having relationships with other women or relationships to men that are platonic. Especially knowing that she was giving that lecture to women of the 1920s and 30s who were quite possibly our future artists and authors. I think it was a really valuable lesson to pass on. However, while I feel like there were definitely valuable conversations in this book, and conversations that are still very relevant today, I feel like a lot of other books have surpassed this one in relevance, which is totally fine. You can't expect to read a book that was published in 1929 and expect that it's still going to be completely relevant in 2022. In 2022, we are now living in a world where women make up 50.5% of currently working authors in the United States. So we've surpassed men at this point, and women hold by a very slim margin the majority. Looking back at classics like this book are always important because they always give us the context of how far we've come and where we used to stand and where we are now. However, the more pressing problem today, I feel, is people of color. We need more POC in publishing. We need more POC authors. And the point that she made about how women are the best people to tell women's story is true of POC authors today. They are the best ones to tell their own story. We're seeing the exact same scenarios that Virginia Woolf is talking about play out today, but this time with POC authors. When white men and women are dominating the industry, we're seeing things crop up like the token POC character, the POC sidekick. If we were getting those stories from a Black author, a Hispanic author, an Asian author, we would see those people as individual people, main characters, and not who they are in relation to whiteness. And the other point I wanted to talk about was how she talks about having a stable income and a room of one's own is important in order to create art. I saw this conversation happening recently, especially over on My Name is Marinez channel. Marinez is a really amazing creator here on BookTube and also over on TikTok. And I saw her video about Alex Astor and the publishing of Lightlark, and how Alex Astor had been really presenting herself for quite some time as like a pick herself up by her bootstraps type of author who had been struggling to create her art for many years and was finally breaking into the publishing industry, and had kind of failed to disclose that her family is quite wealthy and that she had had the financial support and stability and the time to really devote to her art in order to work this hard and push it into the publishing industry over a number of years. I don't want to get too embroiled in that whole conversation, but I just thought it was so interesting, the points that Marinez made in her video, how a book from almost 100 years ago had kind of perfectly summed up everything that is now happening. So to basically just sum up everything that I just said, I think this book has some very interesting conversations, some of which are still very relevant today. I definitely think there are other books that have come after that are more relevant to us here and now in 2022. I feel that a lot of the points that were made about women authors is now more relevant to be having about non-white authors and their underrepresentation and their barriers to entry in the publishing industry. And lastly, I feel like I'm just not that much of a essays and lecture girl, but that's obviously very much a personal preference, and I think a lot of people would enjoy the format of this book. Overall, I gave it a 3 because my thoughts were pretty mixed. I had high points, I had some low points, and yeah, it was kind of just a mixed bag, so 3 felt right to me. I'm sure my girl Rory gave it a 5 out of 5 because she's a little Chilton genius. Just a 3 for me. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. It turns out that Rory's taste in books is as average as her taste in men. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please take a few minutes to subscribe to my channel, to comment down below. Let me know, are you Team Dean, Team Jess, or Team Logan? Like this video, share it with another Gilmore Girls fan, and I will see you again in a new video next Friday. Goodbye.